Good evening. Can you guys see me? They've changed something here on YouTube again. And it's not as easy as it was. Now it just, like, you click the thing and you go live. So there you go. How you guys doing this evening? Hopefully everything is hearable. Looks like I'm getting audio off of my computer. I have the cover of Garden Heat. Garden Heat, a Jack Broccoli novel, which I am very, very excited about. That we're not gonna, this stream is not about this, but this book has been waiting. It's been since, like, I think I wrote it in 2018, 2019, I wrote it, and we are book bombing it right now. I want to see this book end up on the bestseller list on Amazon. I think it's possible if enough subscribers went and pre-ordered the Kindle version, because that's the cheap way to do it. It's $2.99 for the Kindle version. If we get enough pre-orders on the book, I think it will fly. But the world's first gardening thriller was the previous book, Turned Earth, a Jack Broccoli novel. They said it couldn't be done, but I did it. I wrote the book, and people said it was great. Many people said it was great. Everyone said it was great. But then I wrote another book, and they said that one was great as well. I can't do that voice. I'm not very good at it. So how you guys doing this evening? That's enough. That's enough Jack Broccoli for now. I'm just excited about it. There is a link below this video, and I dropped it in the chat. If you want to help with the book bomb, if it gets enough pre-orders, it will work its way up the charts on Amazon, and maybe we might even rank in the thrillers section, which I think would be hilarious. It's a really fun book, and I think you'll enjoy it. It does not take itself particularly seriously, but it's fun. Alright, so I'm gonna kill this, and I also realized that I do not have my guitar with me, so I can't just crank up some cool song at the beginning. So that's enough Garden Heat. Good evening, everybody. I just felt like talking to y'all, and I know that I don't really plan this out very well. And I don't really have a regular time. I tend to be reading, we eat dinner together as a family, and then I've been reading to the kids in the evening. And then in the middle of the day, I'm usually working. And then I've been trying to go to the gym 3 times a week. Plus, I've been adding different animals to the farm, and then I'm filming videos and editing videos, and I'm trying to write a book at the same time. And so, trying to fit in the live streams, I'm not very good at it. And I can't figure out, I need more day. And then Daylight Savings came along. Where's my day? Good evening, Brian. ZMB Lion, nice to see you again. Hello, other Brian. Hello, Boyd. My father's world. Jesus! Benjamin, Eric, Brett, Christopher Chestnut. Christopher Chestnut says, I hate chopping my chicken's head off, but they are delicious. The head? I haven't tried it. Hey, Tim. Grandma romance novel. It's not. It's a thriller. It's a gardening thriller. Hey, Karen. Nice to see you. Mad Jeeper. Hey, Karen. Thank you for the super chat. That is a... That's a hippopotamus spinning in a chair. My chair does not spin. I had an office chair. I didn't like it. It wasn't the kind of office chair I would like, so I got rid of it. I fired my office chair. I hired another office chair. It didn't do what I wanted. My back hurt all the time, so I got another office chair. All right. So good evening. We are going to start this stream. This stream is called Breeding a Better Chicken. Carolyn Smith, this is all your fault. Carolyn kept sending me these super chats and saying, get yourself chickens. You have a homestead now. You need to get some chickens. You need to get some chickens. You need to get some chickens. All right, I'll get some chickens, but in order to get chickens, I gotta build a coop, and I'm renting the land we're on. But basically, she pushed me enough that I finally did it. Hippopotamus. I'm the rhinoceros. Hippopotamus. My lyrics are bottomless. Yes. So there we go. So Carolyn kept saying, get chickens. And I have had chickens before. And just about the time I figured out how to keep chickens in North Florida, we moved overseas. And we got a few chickens. But man, it was different there. It was hard to find the right wire. Feed was expensive. The birds were more like wild jungle fowl. It was different. I gave up on them because keeping them in the coop, the rats kept getting in and they would eat the baby chicks. And we just had so many problems, I said, forget it. Yes, I did, Carolyn said. Hey, Scott, nice to see you. So anyhow, I got some chickens. And then I decided, okay, I am going to create a chicken gulag. It's not so much to keep the chickens in, but to keep the predators out. We're surrounded by forest. The neighbors say there's a panther around here. I know there's bobcat. I know there's foxes. I know there are raccoons. I know there are possums because I shot a possum on the back porch the other night. I know that there are coyotes. I know that there are wandering dogs, hawks, owls, rattlesnakes, moccasins, rat snakes, rats, and who knows what else. There are a lot of things here that can mess with chickens or eat chickens. And it's the first thing I did was like, you know what? I remember this from North Florida. I had a neighbor out back, and they had these yippy little dogs. And a couple of those little nasty yippy dogs came through the fence, dug underneath the edge of my chicken yard, and chased my chickens all over. And I caught them before they killed any. Chased them off. They went running back into their yard, and the owner's in the backyard. Great big fat woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Some of my best friends are fat women. But, just incidentally, she's just a fat woman. She's in her backyard, and the dogs go running back over there, and I'm like, hey, hey! She's like, opens the back door, lets the dogs in, goes inside like she's not hearing me. Another time, another neighbor had a puppy. The puppy got off the leash. The puppy went in our yard, grabbed the chicken, and dragged it back. And I caught him dragging it across our yard. The chicken's still alive, and he's pulling the hen. The hen's going, and he's dragging it, and he dragged it through the fence. I ran him down, and I caught him. Because he slowed down. He dropped the chicken, and he ran to the back door, and he was like, trying to get in the back door. And I grabbed him, and I took a rope. I had the kids grab a rope, and I tied the rope to his collar, and I put him by the back door because the neighbors were not around, and I didn't want him running the neighborhood, and I didn't want to come in and get any more chickens. So when they got home, they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry." I mean, I even put food and water out for him. I mean, it wasn't like, "I'm gonna tie you up in the sun, die, little dog." Dogs do what dogs do. They see a chicken and they're like, "Oh, chicken! I love chicken." I mean, and that dog had probably never been around chickens before. So anyhow, I talked to the neighbor. The neighbor's like, "Oh, we're so sorry. We figured out where you dug through the fence. That's no problem. The chicken did not die. I nursed it back to health. Poor little thing, you know. Gave it chicken soup." No, I didn't. I didn't do that. So anyhow, you know, that was just the neighbor's stuff. Another time, I've got some pullets. Oh, thank you, son. I appreciate it. Another time, I got some pullets. And the pullets had just gotten to the size where I could let them free range around the yard a little bit. They're about that big. They're just out there in the yard doing their little thing. I'm going to peck the grass. I'm going to see if I can find a bug. It's such a beautiful day. I like being in the sunshine. When down comes this hawk. Boom! Again, I hear the beep, 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 beep of this little bird, and this hawk is hopping, and it grabs it, and it pulled it up, and it takes it up to the power pole, and I hear this chicken shrieking as the hawk tears it into pieces on top of the power pole. Young and tender chicken. Oh. Yeah. Gone. It's a hawk. Another night, a raccoon gets in. Attacks the birds, kills a couple. Rooster gets killed. Holy moly. Another time I got 16 pullets in a tractor. Got a tractor out in the front yard. It's in the front yard. I mean, it's not, and it wasn't like we lived in the woods. Something digs under the edge of the tractor in the night and bites all the chickens' heads off. 16 dead pullets that I had raised up. A couple months old. These are going to be our nice laying birds. Now they're laying all over the yard. Without heads. Everything wants to eat chickens. So what I learned was, free-ranging is a bad idea. In an ideal world, the chickens are out there feeding themselves, they're eating grass, they're eating weeds, they're eating bugs, they're having a nice time. I like Douglas Wilson, but he's not extreme enough for me. I feel like he walks the fence on some stuff. How's that? Everybody's like Googling Douglas Wilson. Oh my gosh, he's not extreme enough? I learned that free-ranging birds gets them killed. So, we get chickens on a new property. I fence it all in. We're not going to have any predator losses. We had a predator loss before it was all fenced in and buttoned up properly. Something got under the edge of the coop, dug under it, and murdered one of the Rhode Island Reds in the night and took it to pieces. But I just figure, well, chickens are food for wild animals. Then along comes this comment on YouTube. I was talking about chickens, and some guy, I said, nature loves to eat chicken, and free-ranging birds don't work out well for us. So this commenter shows up, Florida Bullfrog, and he writes, No, David. I'm going to issue you a challenge. I assert my chicken videos prove you wrong. If you've lost all or most of your chickens free-ranging in a high predator environment, you're raising defective chickens. There are plenty of predator-resistant chicken breeds. It's just that the internet permy homesteading culture is ignorant of them. You're a victim of a limited knowledge base because many of the YouTube chicken people aren't coming from a deep south, poor, backwoods culture that raised free-range chickens for generations and lived off of them when it mattered. Don't look to a hipster to teach you chickens. Look to some old man who comes from a backwoods farm. You already have this mentality with your gardening. Why not your livestock? So what do you do when somebody says something like that to you? I'm David the Good. I am an expert in basically everything. I'm David the Good. No. I was like, okay, now I get harsh comments. I get harsh comments about it really often. Most of those harsh comments, if they're just dumb, right? If they're just dumb, sometimes I delete them or ban them from the channel just because they're dumb. They're not really helping with the discourse. Other times, if they're like egregiously wrong or if they're really bizarre, I'll screen cap them and talk about them because I find them amusing. And sometimes it's just somebody that's really stuck on some particular point, like they're an atheist, vegan, communist, and I offended them by telling them, that I think God gave me my animals so I could sell the meat, right? It's like there's like three things there, and they're just like, oh, your God is the devil and I hate you. I mean, I had somebody say that you serve Satan because you eat meat. Well, I don't. I do eat meat. But abstaining from meats or preaching thereof is satanic. So I'm on the right side. Anyhow, sometimes you get a comment and you go, holy moly, man, this person's got some bone to pick. maybe not, they got a soybean to pick, or whatever. I can coexist with people that have a wide range of philosophies. However, when somebody comes on and tells you, you're stupid, you don't even know how to compost, haven't you heard of such and such? Or they'll tell me something really bizarre, or when they start with an insult, you realize that person is not coming to you to have an argument about a particular method. That person is coming to you to insult, denigrate, and mess with you because they have a hobby horse that they like to ride. And so you don't respond with dialectic. You don't say, well, actually, I believe that that meat is part of a healthy diet because mankind in all of recorded history, even if you're a creationist or an evolutionist, you would believe that we traditionally ate meat diets and therefore we're adapted to eating. No, you don't do that. You just call them like a bacon hater, Or my favorite tactic is to send them the Pee Wee Herman crack cocaine PSA from the 80s. This is crack. It's not cool. That's the way I respond. But when I get this, no, David, don't look to a hipster to teach you chickens. Look, I didn't learn about chickens from YouTube. I learned about chickens from MySpace. I like birds. I have an emotional support chicken. I learned about chickens from my emotional support group. I don't know. So I could have just responded and been like, okay, whatever. But I like this idea. He's saying something that I hadn't thought about. There are predator-resistant chicken breeds. Don't change the environment. Don't change the way you house the chickens. Change the chickens. How did poor backwoods people in the Deep South, raise free-range chickens for generations and live off them when it mattered? If you couldn't feed your birds corn and soy feed, you didn't have Tractor Supply. If your birds had to live through coyotes, possum, raccoons, did they have expensive coops with automatic doors and did they have expensive wire? I don't even think they had the wire until later. Wire is not all that common. It's expensive. How would you keep chickens alive? And I started to think about it. I went to Indonesia. In Indonesia, I saw chickens running completely free range around this school where we were talking about agriculture. They asked me to come in, and they had just started running water out to this village, and they wanted me to look and give them some suggestions on crops. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting experience. So this organization actually hired me to go travel to Indonesia and look at crops. I'm glad I did it because it was pre-pandemic. It was, we could still travel freely and move around. And while I was there, they had chickens, these scrappy game-looking chickens. And the chickens were roosting 30, 40, 50, 60 feet up high in the trees at night. They lived in the trees around this school. That was crazy. I didn't even know they would go that high. But it was the evening, and the chickens are going up in the tree. You hear them up the tree. They're going higher. They're going higher and higher. Holy moly. They were like way up there. And they put these little baskets on the sides of the tree to gather the eggs. The birds would just go hide in these baskets and lay the eggs. That's crazy. Isn't that wild? You know what? I think that, did I even put my thumbnail isn't even the right thumbnail. I'm going to change my thumbnail right now on the fly because I made one for this. Where did I put it? Where's my thumbnail? There it is. I have it. I just put it on. Thank you. That's funny. I didn't even think of it. Lou, thank you very much for the super chat. Looking better, Dave. That extra sleep doing wonders. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you. I have been sleeping pretty well. And I pretty much, I found that drinking any alcohol makes me slower the next day, like any. So I haven't been drinking any alcohol, and I wasn't really much of a drinker, but I would occasionally have beer or wine, or I would have a cocktail. The next day I wake up, I just feel fuzzy. Like I just don't have the right amount of energy. So I said, I'm just going to quit this for 30 days and see what happens. And I tell you what, my energy levels went way up, and it was just that one thing. And the other thing I did was I went almost totally keto about a month and a half ago or something like that. I've been trying to get really lean and fit, and that has been good. I lost a few pounds, but basically I seem to be holding the muscle. So thank you. I'm glad I look better. And maybe the dim conditions in here. And thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. We'll work for tips. So, oh, we're not that far in. You can catch the replay, but we're not that far in. So I get this challenge. You already have this mentality with your gardening. Why not your livestock? This is true. I wrote a book called Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening. Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening was based on which crops are the easiest to grow in Florida, and you base your garden on those crops, and you work outwards from those crops. You make the basis of your garden not the touchy stuff, but the stuff that will feed you no matter what. So in Florida, that's cassava and chaya and yams and sweet potatoes. Easy, easy, easy stuff. Black-eyed peas, Seminole pumpkin, Everglades tomatoes, right? Super easy stuff. Your middle of your garden should be that. That's your food supply. So how would a poor person, why would they bother keeping chickens? I calculated it once, and my chicken gulag chickens being fed on lots of feed brought in and that kind of thing were costing me something like $6 a dozen eggs. Well, they're good quality. And I said in that live stream that I was wrong about chickens in some sense, that you can't get eggs from the store. The factory eggs from those nasty, cruel factory farms where the chickens are all jammed into little boxes. I saw one of those places and I was horrified. Those chickens are treated like dirt. It is wicked cruel. But it's $1.40 for a dozen eggs, so it's cheap. Cruel is cheap. So I'm going to raise my chickens, and I'm going to let them have grass and kitchen scraps and space to run around and sunshine and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to cost me a lot of money, and that's just the way it is. But people used to do it. I told you guys how much I love doing single row gardens, wide spacing single rows. People used to garden that way for various reasons, for good reasons. But we kind of lost it. Now you better go and build a bed and buy some compost and buy this thing and buy that thing and buy this thing and buy that thing. How did people do it before they could run a garden hose out? How did people do it before they could buy pelletized, granular, slow release, organic, whatever? They grew food. And they grew chickens. Look to some old man who comes from a backwoods farm. That's what Florida Bullfrog said. And I'm going to tell you guys, go look up Florida Bullfrog on YouTube. I'm putting it right there. Go subscribe to Florida Bullfrog right now if you're interested in chickens. And go leave him a comment and say David the Good sent you. Because this story gets more interesting. But before that, let me tell you about my new book release, Garden Heat, a Jack Broccoli novel. We are book bombing it right now. I would love to see the pre-orders take off. If the pre-orders take off, the book will rise in the ranking on Amazon on the day it's released, and the Amazon algorithm gods may smile upon us enough that it will actually rank in the fiction section, which I think is hilarious. Buy it for the cover. If you've ever said, what can we do for David the Good? He is so selfless with all of his content. I wish there was something we could do for him. Go buy this book with the bird with a laser coming out of his mouth. You need to read this book. Actually, just buy it. I don't even care if you read it. All right. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Sorry. The cover art. Scott, when you write your book, I have some really good artists to do the interior stuff. I bet you could do a painting for the front, though. It'd be awesome. Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate it. I appreciate the tip. All right, so go subscribe to Florida Bullfrog's channel and go pre-order Jack Broccoli. They said it couldn't be written. They said people wouldn't like it, but they did. All right, all right. So, breeding a better chicken. So he said, go find somebody. Well, I did. I started thinking about this. My landlord is a friend of mine. I'm kind of his insurance in case civilization collapses. That's why I think, we got such a great deal on renting this land. I am the insurance. If you had a piece of land sitting around and you're afraid the supply lines might break down or something, you might want to rent that land to David the Good or to somebody that knows how to garden it. And that's one of those things. He actually did not know that I was, you know, a great gardener or anything. I didn't even meet him until, you know, a couple of years ago, a year and a half, a year and a few months ago, and I met him, and he said, "Do you guys need a place to stay? I know you just moved back to the States." And I was like, "Yes, I do." So we ended up here, but now I'm basically like. You know, he came over and actually finished the chicken coop. He and his son came over and helped us build it and close it in. So we're very, very happy to be here on this land and do it. But he came over and he told me about some chickens. Now, this is before I got the comment from Florida Bullfrog, and I just took it as, this is just Southern talk. You see, there's some birds. They're fighting chickens. These fighting chickens, they live in the woods, and they're real tough. And they live these short lives because they're always killing each other, so they lay 2 eggs a day. And this guy, he got busted by the law, so his wife let all his fighting chickens out, and they just live out there, and we just go catch ourselves some fighting chickens, and they're the best chickens you ever get. And I'm like, I don't know if I want fighting chickens. Fighting chickens sound like they would be dangerous, like, you know, I got spurred by a rooster real bad when I was a teenager. It was a nasty rooster, a big old stab into my leg, and then my uncle had to clean it out with hydrogen peroxide, and he was really afraid it was going to get infected. It was bad, right? So when I hear this story of some fighting chickens that are living wild, and that's the kind of birds you want, I was like, no, I'm going to get myself some nice, fat, buff Orpingtons that are like little cuddly, dopey creatures, you know, like they'll sit on your lap and they'll purr, you know. I want my emotional support chickens. I like buff Orpingtons, nice birds, great birds. I got a few Australorps. I got a few California whites. I got some brown leghorns. I got whatever was kind of coming through the feed stores and Tractor Supply in the spring. Because I figured, well, I'll get birds again. Carolyn said I have to get birds, so I'm getting birds. So I got some. You know, I got some birds, but I didn't get these fighting chickens, and I thought this was just some crazy talk. Thank you very much, Scott. Scott sends a super chat and says, when I had a chance to have D to the G sign a book, I chose my Jack Broccoli novel. It was an awesome read. Did you want to come in? What? Oh, right. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you, darling. Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate the tip, too. And, yeah, Carolyn, this is all your fault. So anyhow, these fighting chickens. Fighting chickens. These are fighting chickens. Fighting chickens. Okay, I don't know. Short, brutish life. They fight, so they gotta lay a lot of eggs so they can reproduce themselves. Because they just beat themselves, you know, whatever. So anyhow, I this thought was in my head. I'm like, I don't know if I want no fighting chickens. And I looked up like fighting cocks, and they don't lay that much. Well, the cocks don't lay anything, but the hens don't lay that much, and some of them are mean and whatever. And I'm like, I don't know, whatever. I'll get my regular production breeds that I know, and I'll get some Orpingtons because they're sweet with the kids, you know, all that kind of stuff. Well, we raised those up. I got my birds, and I know that these birds will get murdered, so I've got them in a chicken gulag. And then Florida Bullfrog leaves me that comment saying, hey, why don't you treat your birds the same way you treat your garden? Why don't you change the variety of birds? So I said, send me some resources. Send me some links or some information. And he sends me like 2,000 words. So you know what I did? I asked for his phone number. And I called him. And I talked to him for a few... Oh, shoot! He's on the thread. All right. We were just talking about Jack Broccoli. Look. Order my book now. We definitely were not talking about you. Order my book. All right. So, go, like I said, go subscribe to Florida Bullfrog's channel. He sent me, you know, like 2,000 words or something. So I called him, and we talked, and I said, man, you should write a book. I never thought about chickens being half wild, feral on purpose. But after I talked, I said, this makes so much sense. I went down to Key West. I went down to Key West a few times, and I remember those wild chickens of Key West. They just wander around down there. They're all like bright-colored little weedy-looking birds wandering around. And I remember seeing in Grenada birds pecking along the sides of the road, and they had a lot of jungle fowl in them. They called them yard fowls. And they said that those birds could take care of themselves, but the hatchery birds that they got from Trinidad could not take care of themselves. So, I went to Indonesia, and I remember seeing those birds go up into the trees at night. And then I had a few jungle fowl, yard fowls, when I was in Grenada, and they went up in the trees at night. They didn't want to stay in a coop, and they just wandered around. Well, now Florida Bullfrog put a bug in my ear. And all these pieces suddenly snap together. Things that I had seen before. It's like when you're thinking about buying a car, and you never really thought about something before. Like the other day, a couple of weeks ago, my van was in the shop. So a friend of mine said, you can borrow our truck. It's a 2006 Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a pickup truck. I've always wanted a pickup truck. I never buy a pickup truck because I have 1 million children, and I've always tried to save money by having a single vehicle. So we haven't had two vehicles since we got married, like the first year we were married. But I borrowed this truck, and I'm driving it around, and I'm like, man, I really like this thing. It really drives nice. It's got good pickup in it. It could haul a good bit. It's real smooth on the road. I found that I was accidentally going 90 in a 55 just because it was so smooth. Like, you didn't even notice it accelerating. I was just like, I could have gotten up to 300 or 400 miles per hour probably if I hadn't, looked down and been like, oh my gosh, Crazy. Then I started seeing Toyota Tacomas everywhere. I was thinking, if I bought a truck, I wouldn't mind one of these Toyotas. I've always kind of thought Fords were cool, but these Toyotas are pretty cool. And then suddenly I noticed them everywhere. I never really noticed Toyota Tacoma. I just saw it's a truck. It's just a truck, Toyota Tacoma, cool. And if I had driven a Nissan whatever, I would have started seeing it. When you're looking and you start thinking about something, suddenly all the pieces come together. You're like, oh yeah, my neighbor owns one of those, and so owns one of those, and I didn't realize that. Now I see them everywhere. And so suddenly, when Florida Bullfrog and I got talking, I was like, all these bits and pieces, yes. This is interesting. There are feral populations of birds, so I start reading on feral bird populations. There are birds that go way up into trees at night. The Buff Orpingtons can't do that. And when I talked to Florida Bullfrog, he basically said, well, your birds are fat. And your birds are docile. Your birds are large-bodied egg layers that have been basically inbred for docility and for pretty colors. But they are not a fowl that could exist in the wild anymore. They're not wild enough. Interesting. Interesting thoughts. So, Halloween comes around. We live in kind of a rural area. Last year it was Halloween, and I bought some candy, and no kids came. Nobody came the entire night. Not a single knock on the door. Nobody going down the road or anything. We're just out in the middle of nowhere. There's the houses are far apart. There's no reason to stop and get candy, I guess. But I thought, wow, there's no kids that are coming. That's interesting. I guess all the kids are going to like the Baptist church trunk or treat, or going down the streets of Atmore or something like that, where they can get lots and lots of candy. So this year I didn't even bother buying candy, and I don't have any candy in the house. I've got some Tums. I don't think that really counts as a candy, but that's like the most carbs I'll eat in a day. Is like, yeah, I'm gonna pop a couple of Tums because I'm, totally keto right now, and I need some candy. So, anyhow, this family comes to the door. Cute little kids, husband and wife. Hey, how you doing? Trick or treat, trick or treat. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any candy. I'm really sorry. Nobody came all last year, so I didn't get any candy. So, you know what? You guys know what mulberries are? And they're like, the guy says, I think we had some mulberry trees at the hunt camp. Yeah, we have mulberries at hunt camp. That's like a sweet fruit. And his wife's like, yeah, what are they like? I'm like, well, I said, they're like a seedless blackberry. Oh, yeah, that's right. They're good. They're good, right? That's a good fruit. I said, oh, yeah, they're super easy to grow. Have a mulberry tree. Oh, well. I said, you can't eat it now, but, like, next year you could have mulberries and your kids will love it. And he's like, oh, well, thank you. So I gave him a mulberry tree. And then I was like, you know what? Do you want some eggs? I'll give you a dozen eggs. Now, of course, this is dangerous, right? I'm going to give you some farm eggs. It's dangerous because I basically didn't give them candy. I gave them a mulberry tree, and now I'm going to give them ammo, right? But I'm like thinking, what can I give them? Want some homemade sauerkraut? I mean, I'll just scoop some into your bag. I'm not really drinking anymore, but my wife has this vodka that she uses for cleaning the windows. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know what to give him, so I gave him a mulberry tree, and then I asked him if he wanted some farm eggs, and he goes, "Oh no, we got plenty of farm eggs." I said, "Oh, what type of chickens are you raising?" They're kind of a mix. I said, do you have them in a coop? I'm thinking maybe this guy knows something, right? Because now I've just been talking with Florida Bullfrog. What thoughts are we having? Hey, Dusty Goat. And he says, well, no, we don't really keep them cooped up. They just kind of wander around the edge of the farm. It's my dad's flock, but we can get all the eggs we want. No way. Can I come see your chickens? I asked him, can I come see your chickens? Sure. We don't live that far away. We're like 12 minutes from here. Good, I'll get your number. Thank you. So I get his number. That Saturday, I finished up some chores in the morning. The next Saturday, and I was like, hey, Rachel, you want to call this? I'm going to call this guy and go see his chickens. And she's like, okay. So I call him and I said, can we come over and see your chickens? And he said, sure. Come on out. We're just hanging out. It's like, wow. How cool. I'm going to go see this guy's chicken. Middle of nowhere. Dirt road. We pass a trailer here and a little farm here, an old house here, another trailer here. You know, it's just way out in the middle of nowhere, country. The Second Pentecostal Holiness Church, you know, that kind of thing. Primitive Missionary Baptist Church, cool, you know. It's, but we find his place, and he and his dad and somebody else in the family are sitting around. You know, they're drinking cans of beer. Kids come out and say hi. Dogs come out and greet us. Hey, come on up! And I felt like these people are cool. Like I knew them already, you know. Sometimes you just meet people and you like them right away. And they you know, I have a beer with them and we start talking about chickens. Now that was the most carbs I had for the entire week. Woo! A lot of carbs. Natty ice. But they start showing me around. Now these birds, I said, what type of birds are these? Because they're just a mix. I can't tell what type of birds they are. There's some brown ones and some fluffy ones and some like real like exotic looking rooster, and there's some kind of gold ones with stripes and stuff. And he said, well, I started with Orpingtons. I started with a flock of Orpingtons, and half of them died. So, you know, he says, I let them breed with the neighbor has a fighting cock. I let that fighting cock, he's a game bird. I let him breed the Orpingtons, and then raise those up. He said, first year half my flock died. Second year I don't think I lost 5. He said, when they got that game in them, they become better mothers that take care of they know how to hide. They go up in the trees, they go up in the bushes. He says, do you see that tree back there? That's where they go at night. I was like, whoa. They're going up in the trees. I said, well, did you like lock them into a hen house or anything? Is there like any hen houses, you know, like when they're small or stuff? And my wife says, yeah, what do you do? Like when they have chicks, do you protect the chicks? No, the dumb ones die. They get eaten. And the tough ones live. So, he said they got to have at least a quarter game bird. And from talking to Florida Bullfrog, he said a lot of times, you know, when cockfighting stopped being one of the most popular sports in the United States, at one point it was like one of the most popular sports ever. When it stopped being a popular sport, some of those old varieties that were bred to be really aggressive to other roosters, but they've got a lot of self-defense ability, a lot of predator fighting ability. When they passed out, now we have chickens that are mostly docile breeds that are incapable of living in the wild, at least for very long. They don't really have the instincts anymore, and sometimes they're too fat to get up in the trees. So, by babying them, we have bred weak birds. And weak birds make for hard times. Hard times make for weak birds, right? Now, hard times make strong birds. Strong birds make easy times make weak birds, right? So there's a cycle. By protecting them completely and breeding them up for specific characteristics like high egg production, larger bodies, docility, etc., we have ended up with bird populations that are weak. So when Florida Bullfrog says, change your birds, interesting. That's a good idea, Scott. Scott says that's why we shouldn't have school zones. If we're going to teach survival of the fittest in school science class, school zones should be speed up zones to weed out the dumb ones. Doot 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 doot. Yeah. So there's a problem. Weak birds. So he said that after he let them breed up for a bit, now he's got some birds that are moderate-sized birds, but they're able to defend themselves. And he said, you know, the bulldog went out there and he gave that hen over there. You see that hen with her chicks? He was giving her a hard time the other day. He got too near her chicks and she came up and beat the dog, flapping and attacking the dog. Well, that's cool. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So we started with a domesticated bird, and we put in a little bit of genes from fighting chickens. You get those fighting chickens. And them fighting chickens make them birds strong. And those birds can then take care of themselves in the wild. Well, that's interesting. That is so interesting. Hey, Joy of the Garden. Huh. So my brain starts going. And I've had a bunch of talks with Florida Bullfrog. And so I'm experimenting now. I went and I bought myself an incubator from Tractor Supply. 3 nights ago, I got 3 game rooster cockerels. They're not all the way grown up yet, so they haven't killed each other yet. So, I had 2 Rhode Island Red, production red. I mean, they're production reds. They're basically Rhode Island Red of a improved variety. 2 of those roosters, great big bodied roosters. And they were getting mean with the kids. If I go in there, they generally leave me alone. But when my kids go in there, they try to peck at them, and they try to go, one of them was trying to go for my kid's eye. Okay, that's not cool. The kids have to go get the eggs in the morning. I don't want them to have to run the gauntlet with a nasty, nasty rooster. So those 2 roosters, I gave the kids a course in butchering on Sunday evening because I was given game birds on Sunday afternoon. We visited my friend who told me about them fighting chickens, and he had hatched out some of these game birds. And little flighty birds, man. I mean, they're like this. Like they're chicken. You walk up, they're all, poof, they see you from a mile away. They're like, you know, the hens and the roosters are like, whoa, there's somebody over there. I see him. Oh, no, oh, they came closer. Oh my gosh. You know, so they're like all over the place. These birds, they're very bird-like. They're not like my Orpingtons. They're like, ha, hey, it's the food man. Hi, food man. I like you an egg. Can I have a food? You know, the Orpingtons are not that bright, right? These guys, no, these guys are like, you know, interesting. Very interesting. So we butchered those 2, and I showed the kids how to butcher, you know. And we you know, we plucked them outside. I had a big pot. We scalded them. We hand plucked them. Showed them how to gut them. Did all that stuff. Saved the feet for stock. My wife makes bone broth and stock all the time. We drink it regularly. And then I put the game birds in with my hens. Now, BCM Fall says, make sure you keep the roosters separated. Yes, it's going to be a problem. They will kill each other soon. But they are not human aggressive. They never attacked the people that own them. They were bred basically for rooster aggression, it sounds like, but they're not aggressive towards people. Not like those Rhode Island Reds. They can get real mean. So anyhow, when I visited this guy's farm and I saw for some years he had allowed his birds to interbreed with game birds and then he just left them to their own devices, I asked him, how many birds you got out here? And he said, I don't even know. I said, well, how do you get the eggs? He said, well, they lay up in there and I throw a little grain out here now and again to keep them near the house so they come back. Wow. They just lay down there. He said, yeah, I put some nest boxes over there. They'll sometimes lay in the nest box, but we keep an eye on them. Sometimes they lay in little pockets in the woods, and sometimes they lay on top of the hay for the animals. But we get plenty of eggs. We don't worry about it. Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. So I got an incubator, and I got me some game roosters. And my game roosters are going to be breeding with brown leghorns, Australorps, California white, which is improved leghorn, production red, and I'll probably breed them with buff Orpingtons as well. And we will hatch the eggs. But before that round of eggs, I'm hatching another round of eggs for hybrid vigor. Those production red roosters come from a very high egg-laying line. So I butchered them, but I saved all the eggs for the previous few days. And all those eggs are in the incubator right now. I have 41 eggs in the incubator, and they are crosses between production reds, brown leghorns, California white, and Australorp. So we'll get a mix of them. Then what I'm going to do is raise those out, and with all those incredible large-bodied high egg production genetics, they're all good egg layers. All that crazy bit of crosses, then those guys get bred to the game birds. And then the fun begins. Then we start seeing how extreme we can free range them and how smart they get. It'll be interesting, won't it? Very interesting. It only takes 4 to 6 months for birds to start laying. 6 months, they're usually laying full-size eggs. I like this plan. Every 6 months, we get another generation that we can raise up and observe and see how they turn out and what they do and how they act. Yeah. Fun. I've bred Seminole pumpkins before. I have maintained different lines of different seeds, different plants for fun. I have started my own varieties of peaches. I named a mulberry tree. There's a mulberry tree called Rachel. The Rachel Goodman mulberry. And yeah, well, Carolyn started it, but Florida bullfrogs got me thinking about it. And if I can hatch out birds, hopefully I get some of the birds will be better sitters in the next generation. We will cross them and see what happens. Jeff says, how do they prevent raccoons from finding and killing them at night? That's a good question. The birds are very alert and awake, and they fly up in the trees at night. And so they rarely get killed by predators, even though there are lots of predators. Fascinating, isn't it? I think that Florida bullfrog is going to be worried. I don't want to give too much pressure on him, but he's going to be writing this book. And I will definitely have my fingers in it, helping a little bit, I think, because now he's got me doing it. I want a good book on this. And this guy, I'll tell you, Florida Bullfrog, if you're not subscribed to his channel, if this is an interesting idea, go look at the chickens that he has. Go look at his cracker birds. They're fascinating. Little tough birds that he's got He's got him foraging in North Florida, a predator-rich environment, and living. Very interesting. This is a very interesting experiment. What genetics, what bird, remember they're jungle fowl. Originally, chickens lived in the jungle. The jungle is a predator-rich environment. What we did was we domesticated them. Have you ever seen wild rabbits? Compare a wild rabbit to one of those big, fat, fluffy, white and gray and black spotted rabbits. There was a guy who had a pet rabbit, and he would carry it with him all the time. And he would come to my booth at the 326 market north of Ocala when I was running my plant nursery. And this guy would carry this great big fat soft rabbit with him. If you put that rabbit out in the wild, it would be dead. 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 Little bunny, it's so cute. You too, Dusty Goat. Fascinating, huh? A wild rabbit is a survivor. They're bred to be survivors. If you can breed for egg production, you can backbreed for survival. The wilder the bird genetics we can mix in, the closer we can get them to a jungle fowl, well, the more likely they are to survive. But there's a limit to that too, because if you get too far back, you end up with birds that only lay for a certain time of the year, and they maybe only lay 50 eggs a year, or they have very small, scrawny bodies, and there's not much. So what we want to do is find a balance between a bird where the predator losses are not too high, but still has enough meat to eat. If you need to put a chicken in the pot, you can go shoot one out of the tree. And it lays eggs at a decent level. Fascinating. Fascinating idea. So I'm going to keep some of my gulag chickens for safety's sake. I'm not going to just throw the gates open and let all my birds die and see what happens. You know, I know what could happen, and one night we could lose all the birds. But it's quite possible that if I worked on populations of birds, there's a lot next door to us where I could put out some birds and just extreme free range them. Maybe, you know, just put a small flock out there and throw them grain and see what happens and see who survives, and whoever survives goes on to round 2. It sounds a little cruel and crazy maybe, but that's the way you get smarter birds. Very interesting, huh? It's a very interesting idea. So got any thoughts? I'm going to go through here and have a good night, William. Jesus said, I had a wild rabbit glaring at me across the chicken wire around my garden this weekend, but he hasn't eaten my broccoli anymore. Pow pow. Don't Eat the Foxglove says, can they fly up into Douglas firs? Our trees might be too tall up here. I don't know. Some of them could go pretty high. Carla says, will the smaller birds mess with your garden? I wonder if smaller birds will cause the same amount of drama. Oh, I think so. They're destructive. Florida Bullfrog told me that they wrecked his Seminole pumpkins this year. So I don't want them right near my gardens. This is systems that have to be worked out. I don't want them hanging out right next to the house. Which is why I'm probably going to try and establish a population in the lot a couple of, you know, thousands and thousands of feet away. Oracle of God says, talk to Marjorie Wildcraft. She got her birds to go wild. I like it. I will interview her. I have her phone number. Marjorie is my homegirl. Hey, I'm Marjorie Wildcraft, and my birds are completely wild. My birds have a diet of complete free-range locusts. The locusts are fed on non-GMO corn from my neighbor's yard. Lisa says, my best sitting hen was free-ranged, as were her mother and grandmother. Yeah, get a pedigree there. Oh, I gotta tell you guys something else, too. Not related to chickens. And that is, Garden Heat, a Jack Broccoli novel, is now available for pre-order. There is a link available for pre-order. I just don't have the link at the moment. It's in the description because I lost the link when I was posting something else. But that's not what I was going to say. I'm trying to get the pre-order algorithms to go whoosh. If we can get this thing ranking on the fiction charts, my life will be complete and I can retire. But I won't. I won't retire because I love you guys. And I love I think we lost it there for a second. So, what I wanted to tell you was, why are we blurry? There you go. That's better. Are we back? Don't die on me now. Live stream cut off for a second. What I wanted to tell you is that a friend of mine came across some people cutting trees by the side of the road, and they were dumping mulch at her house, and she ended up with like 50 loads of it or something, and she finally said, "Hey, you can have it. They can come to your house now," after she had like 50 loads. And so I was like, okay, that sounds great. So today I got my first load of mulch. I am going to have so much mulch. The guys are bringing 4 more loads tomorrow, and they're going to be making mulch chipping trees into December. They said probably until New Year's or so. So I probably will end up with like 100 truckloads, dump truckloads of mulch, which I'm really excited about. Now you may ask, well, what about deep mulching your garden? Can't you deep mulch your garden now? I could, but I'm not going to. I may do an experimental plot where I deep mulch an area. What I really want to do though is mix it with highly nitrogenous materials like chicken manure and do a massive composting operation to fix my soil. And I also would like to take some of the chips and burn them into biochar because they're already a really good size to be charred, and then take that char and spread it through my garden. So this is a really, really great thing. This is going to be life-changing to have this much mulch. We live so far out, I've never been able to catch anybody doing this. And my friend, she wrote me and said, "Hey, here we go." Just a second, I think that's a brown recluse on my wall. Yep. Everything wants to kill you in Bama. Anyhow, that is really exciting to me, and if I can go and get some truckloads, I may get some truckloads of cottonseed meal. I'm not sure. I gotta research and see how much pesticide is on the gin trash. I know that they spray a bunch of stuff on cotton. However, they strip all of the husk and everything else out, and they just take the seed out of them, and they chuck all the seeds to rot down, and the seeds have a lot of nitrogen in them. I would really, really like to get that gin trash, but I don't know how much potential herbicide is in it, or if the herbicide wouldn't matter that much because it's inside the cotton ball itself. So it may not really have much in the way of toxin in it. I don't know. So I'm not sure. Not sure. I would like to go and get seaweed from the Gulf, but it's a little bit far away. The Gulf from me, it's over an hour drive to get to a place where I can get some seaweed. But if I could get some seaweed and mix it in with those chips and wet it down and put some char in there and put some clay in there, I might make soil out of this place yet, by golly. So, anyhow. Yeah, laughs in Australian, you're right, Carla. That's funny. Yeah, the seaweed is just really awesome. It's really good stuff. Well, thank you all for joining me this evening. If you can help on the book bomb for Garden Heat, a Jack Broccoli novel, I'm going to drop the link back in the chat. I'm going to find it again. If you guys can help me out, it is $2.99 for the pre-order. That was like, I think that was the minimum that they let me do it to offer it. I want to get as many pre-orders in on it as possible so it pings Amazon's algorithms and the computer starts thinking that it's a really popular book and it works its way up the charts, which sometimes makes it catch. So I'm just renting this property, but yeah, if you guys can help on the pre-order, that would be really cool. You all did a great job boosting Grocery Row Gardening. There's over 100 reviews on Grocery Row Gardening now. I blew my mind. Now, I know Grocery Row Gardening is much more helpful to most people than Garden Heat, but Garden Heat, writing a gardening thriller is very personally satisfying to me, and it is entertaining, and you'll enjoy it. So, Joshua says, David, you should do mushrooms. Most people are telling me that I shouldn't do any mind-altering stuff, but you mean in the, yeah, in the chips. Yes, that's not a bad idea. The book would be like ages, probably 12 and up. I mean, it has a few mildly crude jokes in it. I mean, nothing that would be much worse than anything we would joke about here. It has a little bit of excessive violence, mostly towards robots. The joke in it is that the violence in Jack Broccoli is like ridiculous, over the top, like parody almost. It's funny. The book is about, there is a conspiracy. There's a group of people that are heavily invested. They are trying to save the world. There's a group of people that are trying to save the world from global warming. And they have this shadowy organization that contains billionaires and others, and they're convinced that global warming is a dangerous, a huge threat. But average people aren't taking it seriously enough. People don't take global warming seriously enough. Because, like, when they're raking snow off of their driveway and it's an early snow, they're like, I would love some global warming right now. So they get annoyed of people not paying enough attention to global warming, and they decide they're really going to kick off global warming so they can make it really, really hot. And Jack finds out about this conspiracy. He gets sucked into it because there are wildfires being started in this weird pattern, and they find the next piece of the pattern where the wildfires are being started, and he ends up on the run, and then they try to convince him to join them, and they kidnap his girlfriend, and he has to rescue her, and it's just crazy, insane fun with lots of jokes and fun illustrations, and it doesn't take it too seriously. I don't really get into whether or not global warming is a big problem or whatever else. It's just hilarious fun, because I don't really care that much on those debates back and forth. I don't believe in poisoning the environment, and I don't believe in massive pollution and stuff, but I'm not convinced on any mass way which way the world's going to go or not. I've read the Ice Age people and the global warming people and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to tend my own garden, but it is funny. No, it's not like a nonfiction book. It is definitely fiction. It's insanely funny. Yeah, it's a true story. And this book is actually better than the first one. The first one was good. In the first one, Jack has to face a radical Korean communist no-till farming cult that is murdering soil scientists and tillers. Anybody that tills or is involved with agriculture, they're getting killed one by one. And Jack has to face them down in person, travel to Korea and find out who's doing it. And they target him as well. And he also finds out that there is something living in his head that gives him a super power, the ability to manipulate organic objects with massive feats of strength. So, yes, so check the book out if you can help me on the pre-order. And if you want to get Turned Earth, I think you'll enjoy it too. It's very fun. Sean sends a super chat. I'm sorry, you said something about this before and I didn't answer you, and you had to send me $5. Now I feel guilty. Hey David, can I get some I feel so guilty, Sean. I hope I give you $5 worth of advice. Hey David, can I get some tips on good writing habits? Writing a spicy book on political nonsense and want to do it well and timely. Well, I will tell you how I write a book. I have my topic. So let's say I want to write a book on the oil spills of the Gulf. Okay. Gulf oil spills. The oil spill tragedies of the Gulf, right? First thing I do is I come up with a catchy title. Black Tide. The sordid history of the Gulf oil crises. Right. Something like that. I've got a cool title. Chapter 1, a brief history of oil. Chapter 2, what's so special about the Gulf of Mexico? Chapter 3, the first crisis. Chapter 4, a media circus. Chapter 5, an ecosystem repaired. Chapter 6, the major players, right? So I've got these different things that I'm thinking as I read everything I can about the topic, digest what I can, talk to experts if I can. If it's not coming right out of my head, I will often call somebody. Like when Florida Bullfrog sent me a really long informed comment, I called him and I asked him questions. Tell me more about this. I have no idea. I have no idea about this wild chicken stuff. All right. So I write my skeleton. And then I treat each chapter as its own essay that ties into the greater book. But this point is focusing on this. It was 3:04 a.m. when the alarm first sounded. John Pinkerton on the such and such lighthouse was the first to get the call. Help! Our hull has been breached. At 4:06, the Coast Guard arrived to find this and that and the other thing. They threw down buoys, they do this, they try. By 8 o'clock the next morning, it was all over the news, and everyone was talking about this tragedy. How many birds would die, how many fish would die, what would it do to the beaches. Meanwhile, 1 billion gallons of oil was spreading, whatever, Start in the middle of the story. Get people interested in the story. Each chapter has an interesting start. You get to the end of the chapter. What happened at 3:04 on such and such morning was still happening 3 months later until they finally managed to stop the whatever, right? You tie your chapter together. The next chapter. Now that we saw how it happened, let's take a look at why it happened. Blah, 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 blah. You fill in all the blanks, right? Now, I have great respect for the Gulf oil industry. One of my friends works for them. He's a consultant on the oil. When they shut down, it is a big, 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 big deal. We need that oil. And I don't want to pay $20 at the pump. And I don't want to have to get all our oil from OPEC, etc. But depends on what you want to write and what you're covering. You write the skeleton of the book. Now that's the first part. You write the skeleton of the book. You've got your little topics. You fill in the blanks on the topics. The next thing you do, you've got 12 great chapter titles and a great title for your book. Good, that's enough. Unless you want to write 30 chapters. You might want to later. It might be a really complicated, long topic. Most of my chapters tend to run from 10 to 15 chapters in a book, something like that. I don't write huge books usually. Then you have to actually make yourself sit down and write every day. Set yourself a word limit. Get yourself a timer. You are not going to check the internet. You are not going to answer your phone. You are going to turn your phone off. You have no internet. You are going to type your way through for a half an hour of time. Set a timer for 30 minutes and type. You're just going to type. You're just going to write. The end of 30 minutes, bing, the timer goes off. Maybe you still feel like writing, so you just continue because now you're in the zone. Just keep going. Don't stop. But often you can go and take a break, grab yourself a cup of tea, and then go back and start another 30-minute. It's called Pomodoro. That's the timer. Pomodoro method was like you work for 25 minutes, then you take 5 minutes off, but you just work in sprints. That works really well. That works well for me. I don't do it all the time. Now I pretty much just sit down and write when I feel like it, and I make myself write. I usually go for a word count goal. If you can make yourself write 500 words per day, 500 words per day, you have 15,000 words in a month. But at the end of 4 months, you have 60,000 words. That's a complete book. Not a huge book, but it's a complete book. If you write 1,000 words a day, you have 30,000 words at the end of the month. Or if you do what I like to do and write 2,000 words per day, you've got 60,000 words at the end of 1 month, and your book is done. Then you go back and edit it later, but don't worry about the editing and stuff while you're doing it. Just sprint and run. And that is my advice, and I hope it was worth $5. But make yourself write every day. Set a timer. Nobody talks to you. You don't talk to anybody else. And all the girls that are ringing your phone, they just gotta wait. It actually makes you more attractive to ignore text messages. What? You know, if you just let a girl text you like 20 times, and then you come back with, lol, what? Or you just, I don't know, like send her a picture of something random and don't answer when she says, what is that supposed to mean? That makes you really attractive. I learned that from the internet. So. Wow, it's crazy, man. Suburban garden permaculture. Wow. Girls don't text you. Oh, sorry. Sorry to guess. Awkward. So, anyhow, that's helpful. I'm gonna call it this evening. Thank you all for the super chats. Thank you to members who are here supporting the channel. If you are not a channel member, it's $5 a month. And occasionally we do members-only chats, and I usually send all the members a copy of my books before they are out, and sometimes we have book discussion threads, which is kind of fun. It's just a way to support the channel. You don't have to. I'm glad that you're here, whether or not you do that. Thank you all for the super chats this evening. I would like to thank Sean and... Let's see. I gotta back up now. It used to say exactly like all the super chats that I got, and now I could just kind of run through everybody's names, but it doesn't look like it's doing that anymore. YouTube keeps changing things on me just when I think I've figured it out. But thank you for all of you who gave super chats. I know Karen, Scott, Sean, a couple others. And I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Have a great night. I hope it was a little inspiring to think about breeding new chickens. Go subscribe to Florida Bullfrog's channel. And don't forget, we're doing a book bomb for Garden Heat, a Jack Broccoli novel. And I just dropped the link in the description. Have a great night. Should have a new video up tomorrow. Until then, God bless you. And may your thumbs always be green.